Koto. Welcome to South Pacific Muscle, and hey, we made it to 2021. Bless. So good to see you all here, and really cool today. You know, it's going to be a big year for us, so I thought let's go big, and it doesn't get much bigger than big Darryn Onekawa. So welcome on board, Darryn.
Hey, Nate, thanks, brother, for having me on again, man. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. No, it's good to have you, and good to see you again, Mike.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yep, you survived. Everyone survived New Year's in, and ready for another year in the trenches.
Sure did, 2020, maybe.
Anything's going to be better than 2020.
Yeah, well, it's been a year. It's been a crazy old year, and I just see, you know, given you've done the Arnold Classic, I just saw the announcement: Arnold Classic Ohio 2021 has been moved to September. So apparently apparently the venue is currently being used as a COVID treatment center or something over there. So, so the world's still a bit crazy out there, but we'll focus on what we focus on and leave the variables to those in the know. So
maybe we should see if they can move it to Auckland.
Sorry, what was that, Darryn?
Maybe we should see if they can move it to Auckland. I'm pretty sure Mo will be down with that.
Yeah, wow, how good would that be? There's actually, look, I mean, that's not a silly idea. There's some huge opportunity in New Zealand to start going to, you know, like the Arnolds, like the UFC, things like that, and going, hey, we've got a venue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You probably need multiple events to make it worth them quarantining for 2 weeks. You know, like when you bring a cricket team over and you do 2 or 3 games, you can televise all of those. You come over for one show, and then you've got to just get away again. 2 weeks is a long time to quarantine for one show.
Sure, totally. Agree.
Right. Hey, what I thought like would be really good, Darryn, because I know I had the conversation with you. I was quite aware of your you know, your competitive background, but not so much what you'd be doing outside of that in terms of training and coaching and that. So I thought we'd focus firstly on your background and just tell us a bit about you growing up in your sports, and then really I want to dig in and hear a bit about your competitive career, because I recall you competing way back when, and I think the last show I saw was your show over in Aussie. So give us a bit of a rundown of early days and where you got.
Sure, man. Well, I'm a bit of an old timer now, man, but you know, I've been around in the sport for a long time. I go right back to when I was doing teenage competitions. So, you know, to bring you up to the speed as quickly as possible, I started, my interest in bodybuilding was peaked when I was about 14 years of age. It's a common story from those people that know me and my background, but, you know, just briefly, my father brought home a VHS video of the 1989 Mr. Olympia, and I was actually home from school that day on the couch, unwell, and he came home from the gym and he said, "Here, boy, why don't you watch this?" And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Oh, it's a thing called a bodybuilding show." And so anyway, I watched it, and I just remember right then being just mesmerized about these physiques, and this was when Lee Haney was going for his 6th consecutive win, I think it was. So, you know, and just seeing these physiques like that, I was just mind blown. And so that would be the first time that I actually got a taste for bodybuilding. Although, because of my dad, he used to get the old Muscle and Fitness publications from Joe Weider. So I was flicking through magazines as young as sort of 10 and 12. So, you know, seeing all the old greats, you know, that were in those magazines. But then fast forward to when I actually got into the actual training side of things, I didn't actually go to the gym until I was about 16 and a half. And so the reason for that is I wanted to leave school. So my mother said, "Yep, okay, you can do that, but you've got to get a full-time job." So that's what I did. And the job that I went for, I was given the nod. Yep, you can have this job, but you're going to have to work certain nights, which means that you're not going to be able to play rugby, because I had worn my Bay of Plenty jersey when I used to play schoolboy Bay rugby to the interview, because my mum couldn't afford to have a actual jersey for the high school that I went to. So I used to wear my Bay jersey because it was the same colour. So the guy who was interviewing me said, yeah, you've got the job, but you're going to have to understand that you can't work on, you've got to work late nights, Thursdays, Fridays, and possibly and Saturdays, so you can't play rugby. Do you want the job? And I said, yep, I want the job. So as a result of not going to the gym, not being able to play rugby, which was my first love, I said, okay, well, I want to do something else. So I ended up going to the gym, man. That's when I was 16 and a half. And a lady who worked at the gym, she happened to see me and said, oh, have you thought about doing a bodybuilding show? So that's what I did. So I ended up doing my first show in the Central North Island Champs in Fielding, Palmerston North, mate. And I won my first show. And I was 69 kgs on stage, dripping wet, mate. So
love it.
Yeah. So that's and as the saying goes, man, the rest is history. It just went from there. Yeah.
So your father was obviously into the gym and the weights. Did he pass on some pretty good genetics? Was your father fairly well muscled, or?
It's a good question, Mike. To be honest, I mean, undoubtedly yes. My dad was, quite strong. He wasn't a big man. He was only about 5'7", but he used to always say he was 5'10", which it didn't occur to me that until I was later on in life, and I said, yeah, he's never been 5'10", 5'7" best. But he was very strong, and so that's I believe that in that respect. But when it comes to the actual sport of bodybuilding, I think I actually got my mother's hard work ethic from a mental standpoint, because my mum played softball for Canterbury. She, everything that I got in terms of my sporting ability came from my mum. But so it was a really good blend. My father obviously gave me the genetics physically, but I think the intellect in terms of the actual mental side of the sport came from my mother. So yeah, it was a good blend.
You got to have them both too, right?
Yeah, man, for sure, absolutely.
So when did you start getting up on that national stage and start sort of contending for those, in that?
In terms of the big titles, I mean, I was on the national stage after 3 months after my first show, mate, and I won my first national champs 2.5 months after I did my first show, So arguably, mate, I was on that national stage, right from the very beginning. Yeah. But if you're referring to the overall title win, which took me to actual pro status, well, that was in 2009. So, I often have people, saying to me they want to earn their pro card, or you see or read people saying that they want to become pro. A lot of people perhaps sort of don't understand that it's a long game, especially, when you're doing the sort of the open men's side of things. So it took me, maybe I was a slow progressor, but it took me 16 years from when I started to when I won my actual overall title, which got me my pro card.
I think that's a really, really good point to pick up on, because we've had a few young fellas on that have had aspirations of pro cards, etc. And I guess I would have loved to have one, and I've been going 30 years and I'm nowhere near getting one. And I think that people don't realise that to achieve that you need to have relatively good genetics, one hell of a work ethic, and a big commitment time-wise, financially, and it is a long game. We've got guys in New Zealand that are super talented that have been going 10 years and still haven't won a pro card.
Yeah.
They're giving away a few
totally
more these days than they did when you started. I'm sure, Darryn, it must have been a lot tougher to get a pro card back then than it is now.
Exactly. I mean, when I won my show in 2009, the Nationals, that's when they used to give one pro card out, and you had to win the overall title at the Nationals. So I don't, I want to choose my words carefully, because it's not to devalue anyone else that won their pro card at the Nationals just gone, but there was definitely a sense from where I'm sitting, and perhaps some of the old school people would agree that it was a little bit more, I don't know, when you won your pro card back then, it kind of meant a heck of a lot, because you know, they just weren't giving them out as frequently as they do now.
I think one of the big ones too is that, you know, we didn't have the number of divisions that we had back in the day, that we have now. And so the, you know, everyone that was there was essentially wanting to win an overall. So the, probably the number of high quality athletes in that field was relatively higher back then.
Yep. You know, and I mean, look, like I said, it's not to take away anyone that's won a pro card, you know, last year or the year before that or whatever, you know, but there are, I mean, the sport of bodybuilding has progressed so far, you know, the different categories alone is going to suggest that you're going to have more pro cards up for grabs, you know. You know, it's taking nothing away from anyone in that respect, but, you know, but even back in the old days, back over in, you know, the US and all that sort of stuff, you had to win the overall nationals, NPCs, to win your pro card. And I mean, when you've got a lineup that's got, you know, some of the greatest names ever in the same show, you can imagine, you know, the depth of the quality of that particular, you know, that field. So, but I mean, you know, everything's sort of, you've got to move with the times, I guess. And that's the great thing that, you know, the likes of, you know, obviously, you know, Mo here in New Zealand, and also, you know, the likes of, you know, Jim Mannion, etc. You know, they've got their eye on the big picture, you know, and it's all about sort of appealing to the masses. And, you know, at the end of the day, bodybuilding is a business, and it's about bringing the sport of bodybuilding, the health and fitness movement, to the masses, and making it more achievable to lots of different people, and not just overall bodybuilding. You know,
I agree. I think it's easy for us to sort of look back and think, because I remember those 90s NPC lineups, and you saw guys, you know, that were coming second and third, that went on to be some of the best pro bodybuilders, and you think, how can a guy like that not win? But then when you looked at that and think one person every year won that card, it was crazy. But you're absolutely right. If we, you know, I guess put our heads in the sand and want to live in the 90s still and all the rest of it, bodybuilding would die a death like a lot of other sports have. So I think it's really cool that we are moving with the times, and but we can still have our views about 90s.
Oh, mate, there's nothing wrong with being nostalgic at the end of the day. And I mean, you know, the bodybuilding sport that is now was built on the backs of those champions. But like every sport, everything evolves, and you know, it's moving in the right direction. I mean, look at the last Olympia that we had, you know, just, you know, several weeks ago. I mean, that was one of the deepest and best lineups that we've had in the Olympia for ages. You know, so bodybuilding as a sport is alive and well, mate. You know, so you know, it's still my passion, and I really enjoy doing it. But I also, you know, am eager to, you know, pass on some of the knowledge that I've got over the last 20, 25 years, and perhaps help someone else, you know, achieve their goal, which might be to do what I've done. So, you know, it's cool. Pass on the torch as well, I guess.
Hey, what I might do is have a look at some of your Instagram photos, because there's a few from your competitive career there. So I'll bring that up. Okay, so here we have Darryn's page, Darryn_Onekawa_ IFBB Pro, and look who's following you, Flex Lewis, Kevin Leverone. I'm like, ooh, as soon as I saw that. But what I've got to say, the thing that grabbed me the most is, you know, you're a very, very proud father. So first and foremost, tell us, because I've talked to you before, and you've said, you know, you've talked about your reason, and the reason that you've been able to achieve some of the things that you've been able to achieve, which have been, you know, like when you came down from what were you, close to 160 kilos, and crash dieted basically in 16 weeks and got on stage. Most people physically couldn't have done that. And I think you said to me, if your reason's bigger than the excuses, you'll get it done. So do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Well, I mean, what you said there was exactly what I can only reiterate, and that is exactly what the case was for me. My reason was, you know, far exceeded the excuses. You know, and without sort of going off on too weird of a tangent, you know, the sport for the most part can be excused because there is a level of egotism there, I guess, and you know, there's a lot of you know, people do it for likes and follows and all that sort of thing, which is great. I mean, you know, that's what social media is all about. But for me, I've found and always found that, you know, especially pre-social media, you know, and then with the advent of social media coming into play, it's not those likes or follows that get you up in the morning at, you know, 4 o'clock to do an hour's cardio on an empty stomach while you're running on a 1,500 calorie deficit, trying to push out, you know, a huge leg workout. You know, it comes down to something more, and it's more sort of mental than that. And for me, having that focus, which was my daughter, actually made all of that almost quite easy, because I was focused on wanting to do the best for her. Now, you know, in saying that, she was proud of me no matter what. But to me, I used her as a catalyst to do the very best I could. And that's the reason why, after 5 years being out of the sport and basically walking away from it, I actually came back better than I'd ever been on stage, which is something that doesn't normally happen, you know, when you take that sort of length of time off. And it was because I had something that I could really focus on, which was my daughter.
Cool, man. That's really cool. I really like that story, bro.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, here's an oldie in your first pro show, and look at those. Bro. BPAC and Dennis Wolf.
Yeah, I even look at that photo myself, and I thought, man, I tell you what, it wasn't maybe 20 minutes before that, I was having like a mental meltdown backstage, and I was just like going, I shouldn't be here. I'm in the wrong place. How do I get out of here? You know, is there a back door? Yeah. And well, basically, I went and I was told to go and stand by Dennis, and I think there's actually a picture somewhere on my Instagram page. Yeah. And I was told, go and stand by Dennis, and I was like, why? I said, go and stand by him, and just stand next to him, facing away. So that's what I did. Took a photo, came back, and the person said, look at this. And he said, and I said, is that what I look like? And he goes, yeah. He says, that's what you look like. So, you know, snap yourself out of this mind space and get up there and battle. You've put in the hard yards, you've done the dieting, you've made the sacrifices, your mum and your loved ones are in the crowd. Get out there and battle. You know, apparently you've got warrior on your arm. You know, was that there for show, or are you actual? So that's what I did, mate. And also, I will also mention that Ben Bukowski, who's a flipping awesome guy, just like Dennis, I was standing backstage with him, and he said to me, mate, he says, you know, obviously, in not as many words, but he just basically said, you know, get up there and have fun. This is your first pro show, and you'll never get this opportunity again, so just enjoy the moment and get up there and have fun. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget those words. And I went up there, and that's exactly what I did. And looking at that picture there, I'm looking to myself, I still get quite surprised and thinking, you know, obviously I'm no Dennis Wolf or Ben Bukowski, but my whole point of competing has always been, like on the pro stages, as long as I look like I belong up there, then that's okay. And I feel in that picture, I at least look like I belonged on that stage. You know?
Isn't it funny how the games our head plays with us? Because I remember once looking at a photo and having a real moment, almost freaking out and going, "Do I actually look like that? I don't think I do." And you have these little bits of self-doubt, and I can imagine going on, you know, walking.
And the interesting thing, bro, is that it makes no difference whether you're getting on stage on a pro stage or you're doing your first show. You're always going to have that moment of doubt, and you know, because that's just part of the process. But I tell you what, that actual feeling is exacerbated 10 times if you haven't done the hard yards. Okay, so if you can get on stage knowing that you've put in the hard yards and you've done everything that you possibly could, you haven't cheated on your diet, you haven't cheated on your cardio, etc., you can get up there and say, this is me, this is the best I can possibly be, I'm just going to go out there and do my best. Then at least you've got that in your back of your head. But there's nothing worse than being on stage, any stage, at any level, and being unprepared. Because I tell you what, it's a lonely ass place up on stage, man, and you look like a pile of, you know,
Just
rubbish.
for those who are doing their prep, if you make sure you stick to your prep and you don't cheat, you don't make any mistakes along the way. follow your process, then you can stand up and say, I could not have done anything else.
Exactly.
If my process wasn't right, I can refine it and make it better next time, but it's not for want of trying. You're standing out there going, I did absolutely everything I could. So if that helps get you through those moments of wanting to cheat or moments of wanting to skip cardio, it's not wanting to stand up on stage and have regrets about what you didn't do or, you know, the mistakes you made. So follow your process, stick to it, and let the results be what they might.
Couldn't agree with you more, Mike. And I'll tell you this, hand on heart, there's never been one show that I've ever done since I first did my first one that I've ever skipped any part of the process. And that's the reason why I feel that I've always presented myself well on stage. But I've never ever gone on stage and knowing in the back of my mind that I've half-assed it somewhere along the line. Never once, mate. Never once.
Nothing worse than standing up and going, oh, I wish I hadn't eaten that Mora bar. I wish I hadn't skipped that cardio. It's too late then. It's done. You know, don't have those regrets.
What's it saying about the pain of regret? There's more than the I can't remember exactly how that saying goes, but I think there's nothing worse than regretting and thinking, what if, you know?
That moment there that you got there with Jay Cutler, that was one of those moments, mate, that I realised that, you know, if you apply yourself to your trade, you apply yourself to what it is that you're trying to achieve, you can get to a level where the people that you idolise will actually become a person that you can just get on with as a friend. So, you know, I mean, I had met Jay prior to this occasion, and obviously he was at the show, and I had literally, I was waiting in line to have a photo with Jay, because at the end of the day, mate, I'm a fan of the sport, always have been, always will be. And I'm seeing Jay, and I'm standing in line, and he saw me, and he ushered me through and said, you know, come up here, which to me was, I felt embarrassed, because I was like, I don't want to jump the line, man, you know, people are going to go, why is he jumping the line, you know? I didn't, but he said, come up to the front, and it gave me that sense of, you know, achievement, you know, because knowing that you're sort of within your own ranks, and you get that respect, that to me was something was really cool. And I mean, Jay is just, you know, he's just such an awesome guy, and obviously, you know, represents the sport of bodybuilding, you know.
I find it really cool how guys at that level are just so open. Like, I mean, I met Jose Raymond when he was over here, and I was over in one of the casinos in New Orleans, New Orleans Casino, I think it's called. Anyway, for the Olympia. And I saw him from the other side of the room, and he waved out, and we went up and had a chat, and he's remembered me from Auckland. So, you know, they're very personable guys in real life.
Agreed.
Look at that.
I'm not sure he'd remember me, though.
No, I don't know. That's, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
it's one of those photos.
But you know what, mate? That's backstage. That's actually his son in the background that you can see with the blue shirt. His name's Joseph.
Yep.
But that's me backstage, and I was standing there, and then I thought to myself, okay, funny little backstory. The funny thing is, like, the week before that show, I was doing cardio on my bike, you know, sitting there, you know, sweating, tired, you know, starting to really sort of, you know, second guess my decision about going through with this show. And then I was watching the movie, and then I clicked, and I said, and I was watching Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. And then it dawned on me, I went, holy shitballs, I'm going to be meeting this dude next week. I'm going to be doing his show. So the next week I was doing the show, and I was standing backstage at the exhibition centre in Melbourne. I saw him, and then I thought, my gosh, you know, this is huge. So I just went up to him, and obviously he was very happy to take a picture, and I got that picture snapped for me, and it's one of the coolest things that I've ever had, because you know, as a bodybuilder, man, who isn't a fan of Arnie? I mean, gee whiz, Commando. I've seen that movie 20 times, mate.
It's kind of like it's sort of like for most people, it's like meeting the Queen or something, you know, or you know, someone who's, I can't think of anyone I'd probably more like to meet than Arnold, you know. So
he's definitely up there for me, yeah.
Cool. I love this photo too. I had to get that photo. Where was that taken at?
That's the 2012 Melbourne Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's George.
Yep. That was a really good show. That was my best showing today. Every show that I've ever done, I've always been better than the last one. And that might sound pretty, not arrogant, but people might say, "Oh yeah, whatever." But I can honestly, because each show that I did, I always wanted to improve.
Yeah.
But that was the best show that I ever did to that point. And the improvements that I'd made from 2011, where I placed 7th, to 2012, where I placed 4th, was huge. And I had Bev Francis run backstage after the night show, after we'd been placed, and she said, "Darryn, if you'd come in the same like this morning, you would have placed 3rd." And all I said to her was, "Bev," I said, "I'm just stoked to be here, and if I got 4th, then I'm absolutely happy." Now, again, little backstory, but my stepfather had died the year before, and he was a part of my life for 19 years. And I actually, many times as I was going through the prep to do that show, I was living in Wellington at the time. There were moments where I felt sorry for myself. I was tired. I didn't want to go to the gym. I didn't want to do and all the rest of it. And then one particular day, I was sitting at the lights, and man, I was so tired at this particular point. I would start to nod off between the light turning from red to green. That's how exhausted I was. And I remember sitting outside the gym, and I just couldn't. Felt like I couldn't get out of the car and go do what I needed to do. Anyway, it was that time that I had this realization that I said to myself, here I am complaining about getting up and going to the gym, which is my choice. I chose to do this, and here I am pissing and moaning about how tired I am, yet my stepfather is dying of cancer. And I thought to myself, I need to pull my damn head in and shut up and get on with the damn thing. And that's what I did. And that was and I used him. You know how I said to you before about my daughter being my reason? Well, that particular year, my stepfather and what he was going through was my reason. And there was no way I was going to come in anything less than the best, because I had no right to complain about being tired or being hungry. And that was the result, mate.
Strong motivation, man, when you tap into things like your family and people that you respect and those type of things, rather than, I can't imagine trying to prep for a show based on I might get some more followers on Instagram. Fuck, I'd fall off in about a week. I'd start dieting. I'd be off the rails. But yes. when you've got people that you almost, it's like you do it as a tribute to them, or
yes.
as hey, I don't know.
Did you go to the 2009 Nationals that we had in Auckland? You did, eh?
Oh, who won that one? 2009, the one you won.
And that's the one that I won. I'm just wondering if you recall, my posing routine. You're not supposed to remember, but you see, my father in 2008 passed away. Yeah. And I used that as a motivating factor for me to ultimately win the Nationals. Yeah. So, I suppose tragedy, when those emotions are funneled in the right direction, they can be used as a very powerful motivational tool. Because of course I also had my partner, my mum, my stepmom, and I had like 20 people at the show cheering, yelling. But in the back of my mind, I was doing it for my dad. And when my actual posing routine was me like having a conversation with my dad and the posing music. And I came out, and obviously as I was pretty emotional about it. And but yeah, anyway, bro, all I'm saying is, whatever it is that motivates you to get up there and do what it is that you do, grasp that and focus on it, and use that to power you through those workouts where you feel that you can't get through, and you'll get it done.
Yeah. It's interesting, like that reminded me of the speech that The Rock did at the 2016 Olympia, and he talked about his father and his ancestors being behind him and walking. Mm-hmm. Something like that, and that's why he was sort of what drove him to achieve the success that he achieved. So pretty common theme, particularly I think in Māori and Pacific Island people, to draw upon that sort of thing and be a source of strength.
Definitely. Oh, I agree.
Right. Here's a transformation. Wow.
That's me I'm about 15 there. Okay, so I obviously hadn't, I mean, clearly I love that picture because my knee joints are bigger than my quads and my elbows are bigger than my biceps. Like actually, it was something that was, I mean, it speaks for itself. I mean, a lot of people look at me, even now, even though I'm a little bit more downsized than normal, but people look at me and they just assume that I've always been a big guy. Yeah. Whereas the truth is that I was a skinny kid my entire life. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was about 19, after having trained for 2.5, 3 years, that I actually started to, put on a bit of size. Yeah. There you go. Yep. Yeah, that's the 2017 New Zealand Pro-Am held here in Auckland.
Yep. I think, was that the one, that might have, was that the one I did? I can't remember. No, I did 215, 216, somewhere there. Yeah.
This was the show that...
who was guest posing at that one?
Well, it wasn't guest posing. We had Brandon Curry. That's when Brandon, not to name drop, but that's when I first met Brandon and we became friends. Yep. And we're still friends to this day, and like just an absolute gentleman. Yeah. But that's when I met him, and that was also when Darryn Onekawa came over.
Yeah, I remember that because I went and caught up with Dallas at Moe's. We had a really good conversation. He was a nice guy.
Yeah, big time. And there was also Juan Morel, who was he's a beast. And there was also, oh shucks, I forget now, but I did that show along with one of my bros here, who we all know, Kenny O'Malley. Yeah. So we were on that stage as Kiwis, as Māori bros, representing ourselves, our family, and
we need to
it was a great show.
Catch up with both of those boys, Kenny and Taina. We need to drag them along. I chased them early on, but if you're listening out there, and if anyone knows Kenny and Taina really well, get in their ear, tell them to get at us. We want to talk to them. They've had some pretty cool experiences along the way too.
Excellent. No, that was an awesome show. And the week after, I went over to do the Arnolds, and that's sadly the show that Dallas, collapsed on stage. So he was about 2 or 3 guys over from me. So that was obviously, a sad situation. But that was those shows. Yeah. There you go.
I didn't actually know you'd even been on stage with Kevin, and I was flicking through your photos, and I saw the photo, as I was scrolling, and went, "What?" And I was like, "Really?" And I what show was that? That was obviously Arnold, but.
Yeah, he sent me a Merry Christmas, bro, from Kevin, and he was standing in front of the Christmas tree in his house, mate. And the Christmas tree was like 2 stories high. It was ridiculous. But so you can imagine what's going. Okay, so the funny thing is, behind us on that curtain, okay, that's where we come in on stage. Yeah. So those curtains with those stars on them or whatever they are, they come apart. Okay, so obviously my name's spelt with an O. His name spelled with an L. I came out after him. So I hadn't even done a posing routine because I've always pretty much winged my posing routines. And if you could see or watch Kevin Laverne's posing routine, you could probably see my head peering through the curtain in the background because I was like, this is Kevin Laverne. He's a a legend. So, and then here I was coming on stage after him. And that's when he got his big standing ovation. And actually, I make a couple of impromptu appearances on his DVD that he brought out, which was leading up to his show, that show. But Kevin is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He's legitimately one of the coolest guys that you ever meet. He took time for me backstage. We yarned. We went through some posing stuff. and we've stayed in touch, albeit, you know, not daily, but, you know, he's messaged me Merry Christmas, New Year. I've done the same, and just a really, it just blows my mind that I had pictures of him when he won the 92 Night of Champion, you know, the Arnold and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And here I am standing on stage next to him, and I was just like, yeah.
I got to see him at the Olympia when he made his comeback, and I really wanted to meet him, but honestly, the line to see Kevin Marone, it was about here to Taupo. It was fucking enormous. Like everyone wanted, and I waited, and I thought, well, maybe it'll get quieter, and it just didn't, man. It was a 100-meter queue, and it was like 6 or 7 people wide, and it was just like, you know, so.
No, that was a big experience.
Yeah, man.
Really.
What I like about that is that you're probably one of the only people in New Zealand that could have stood there and looked like you didn't get blown away, looked like you had chicken wings. But yeah.
I don't know. It's probably the angle, but I mean, you know, we all know that Rawley's arms are, you know, probably the best in the sport currently, and probably some of the best in the sport ever. But that aside, one of the coolest guys you ever meet. You know, one of the things I'm most grateful for with this sport is the memories that I've got and the experiences that I can you know, draw on and talk with, and like in the situation that we have now, you know, and like, so that particular show, I was really looking forward to talking to my daughter who was at home, and I ended up calling her, and she was sitting in front of the TV ready to watch the show on, you know, pay-per-view or whatever it was. I was being streamed, sorry, live. And I was sitting on the couch. Rawley was lying on the floor with his feet up next to me. And when I got off the phone, he said, "Who's that, bro?" And I said, "Oh, it was my daughter." He says, "Oh, you got a daughter." So we got a conversation. And it's moments like that it's like all these guys there, they're all just everyday dudes. You know, he's got a daughter. He says, my daughter's, you know, they give me a headache. You know, he says, wait till she grows up. You know, we were having a laugh, and then his sister made me some peanut butter on some crackers, and just, you know, just those sorts of experiences, mate. But, you know, he's got family, he's got a daughter. All the guys are sort of, you know, like got kids, but it's those types of experiences that I'm really grateful for, because, you know, there's not very many people in New Zealand bodybuilding that can actually say that they've had those experiences at their level. So I'm very grateful.
I always kind of get a little bit sort of jealous when I talk to the boys that are pros that have got to compete with some of my idols and that, you know. It's I mean, I had the same opportunity with strongman to compete with some of my idols, from guys that were competing World's Strongest Man and that. And like you say, you know, like we had breakfast with these guys, the 10 of us sitting around the table. I'm pretty much in awe of how much these guys can frickin' eat and how big they are. But they're just talking to you like you're one of the boys. And it's sort of, you know, it's...
Mate, I'll tell you, not even on a bodybuilding level, but on a powerlifting level or strongman level, I had gone over to watch one of the shows. Tony had hooked me up with Tony Doherty. Had hooked me up with some tickets. And I was sitting in Tony's gym and having my food, and this guy was sitting next to me, and I was like, holy shit balls, he's huge, you know. And we were talking away and all the rest of it, and I was eating, and then he had this meal, and I said to him, you know, he asked me, sorry, because we got to talking about calories and, you know, all that sort of stuff, and he says, "Oh, how many calories would you, as in me, eat in a day?" And I said, "Oh, geez," I said, "I'd be lucky to sort of, you know, still now, I'm one of the biggest undereaters you're ever going to meet." It's another one of the fallacies that you're going to, you know, probably find out more the more you get to know about me. And I said, "Mate, I'd be lucky to get 3,000 calories in a day, maybe 3.5 at a stretch." And that's legit, mate. And I said, "What about you?" He laughed. He says, "Mate," he says, "I'd take that in my first meal." So we just continued talking, yakking, yarn, and all the rest of it. It wasn't until about a couple of days later that I asked Tony who was it that I was talking to, and he said, "Oh, that was Eddie Hall." And I'm like,
"Oh wow, cool."
Like, who? And Eddie Hall, he's like the strongest man in the world. And so he was busy telling me how he was sort of, you know, eating sort of 10,000 plus calories a day. And that's when he almost fell off his chair laughing when I said that I have 3,000 for the day. And he says, "Mate," he said, "I'd polish that off pretty much for my first meal." But I had no idea. I was sitting next to Eddie Hall, one of the greatest strongmen ever,
That would have
But
been
just
when
because they are just normal guys, bro. They're just normal fellas.
that would have been just around the time he pulled the 500 kilo deadlift in Australia.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a little bit
Around
before
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But you know, it was just. But I had no idea. But my point of the story is that these guys, they don't carry this huge ego to match their physique. In fact,
very human,
you know,
very human.
yeah, they're just human. They're just normal guys, bro. You know, that's pretty cool.
Hey, I'm just gonna before we get into the coaching thing, I'm just gonna rattle off a couple of questions that people have left on the page for you. So bear with me. So some of our readers have said, here we go. Is he going to compete again, Darryn? Are we going to see you on stage again?
No pressure.
None at all.
Let's just say there's part of me that believes that I've got unfinished business. Okay. And the reason I say that is that the last show that I did, I was far off my best, and it was to do with the fact that I had so much that I was going through leading up to that show on a health standpoint. Okay, I had had several chest infections. I'd had a sinus infection. I had been bitten by a white-tailed spider. I had pulled a muscle in my groin. I pulled a muscle in my quad. Before the show, I got food poisoning, and then I couldn't keep anything down once I could eat. So my cover, it was just the worst prep that you could possibly imagine. Yeah. And it showed when I got on stage because my body looked tired and it looked overworked. But I was not willing to back out, because once I've committed to something, I believe that I should follow through on it. But so that being said, I wasn't at the best that I believe that I was far from it. So there is part of me that thinks I know that I could be better than that. Whether that's enough motivation for me to actually commit to doing another show in the future, I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely sort of in the back of my mind, mate. So, you know, we'll wait and see on that one, to be continued, eh?
There you go, 3D Physique. That's your answer there. Stimrat, Damien's asking, what is his favourite all-time bodybuilder, male or female?
Darryn Yates.
Ooh, that was quick. Good
Easy
stuff. Easy.
Six-time Mr. Olympia. And for the reason being, his mindset, his approach to the sport, and the way that he conducted himself. But I have had the pleasure of meeting him 2 or 3 times, and one of those times when my baby was only literally this big, and I've got a picture on my Instagram of him holding Aaliyah, and the caption is, "When a legend meets a princess."
Oh, cool, love it. Yeah, he was cool. He was really cool to my son as well. He was really cool. A lot of time for him. Yeah, and Resolute Fitness. What does Darryn think of the current state of New Zealand bodybuilding?
All right, that's a good question. I think New Zealand bodybuilding as a whole is in a good position, given the fact that we've got so many different classes available to people, which is giving so many people the opportunity to, achieve something that they want to achieve in the sport. The sport of bodybuilding, as in it depends what you define as bodybuilding. You know, some people would think, anyone that goes to the gym is a bodybuilder because they're building their body. In terms of a sport bodybuilding, we're talking about like men's bodybuilding. I think we've got a lot of talent out there. I think there's a lot of guys out there that could that will be able to step up given the right amount of time and patience. So I suppose it's going to wait and see, but the sport, I think, is in a good place moving forward. But I think for someone to actually come through and make an impact on New Zealand's bodybuilding stage, and then go on to having a career on the pro stage and have some impact, or at least look like they deserve it. I don't know how close we are to that happening.
Would the last person, in your opinion, to have really come on with that impact would probably be Steve Orton? Came through and steamrolled everyone and hit the pro stage?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have we had anyone with that much impact that sort of
No, I would agree with that. And obviously, Steve's gone on to bigger and better things, and shucks, he whipped my ass the last time we were on stage. Admittedly, I wasn't at my best, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, he's a great bodybuilder and he's a good bloke. And but I don't think anyone has made the impact on the New Zealand bodybuilding stage since Steve. And prior to that, I would say it would be myself. You know, so you know, not to say that someone's out there, but I don't know, man. I mean, what's your opinion? I mean,
I kind of think, you know, like, I mean, Steve made a big impact coming through into Federation because he had a massive history with NABA previously and was fucking world class at that point that he sort of came in, and I don't think anyone's sort of come in that's just suddenly appeared and everyone's went, wow, holy shit, look at this. So, you know, but, you know, there are people out there that I can think of that, given the right guidance and time, could probably do that. But whether they will, whether they've got, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. What, in your view and experience, makes a good bodybuilding coach or mentor?
In my experience, what makes a good bodybuilding coach or mentor? I think the first thing that would come to mind is experience. You know, a history of and pedigree of excellence. I understand you don't have to be great at playing rugby to be a great rugby coach. And I suppose the same can be applied to bodybuilding in terms of you don't have to have been a Mr. Olympia contender in order to be a great coach. But I do believe there is an element of experience that should be present because, and I'll explain myself, in so many cases, there are people out there that are directing people's, you know, coaching experience that have got little or no experience themselves in what it feels like to go to that very edge. So, you know, when you've got someone that's telling you that you need to be doing this much cardio whilst you're eating this fewer carbs, while you're, you know, drinking this much water, and they are telling you to do this, and yet they haven't gone to the degree where they have done that themselves and come on stage full, ripped, shredded, hard. How the hell are you supposed to tell anyone else how they're supposed to feel when you haven't felt that yourself? Because it's easy to sit back in your rocking chair, mate, and tell someone how, when you're only going to be taking in 50 grams of carbs, but you're going to be doing this, da-da-da-da. But they haven't
absolutely agree. And there's a couple of young guys that are training here, and I said, are you going to compete? And they said, yeah. And I said, have you got a coach? And they said, yeah. And they told me who it was. And I said, but he's never even done a bodybuilding show. He's never even had bodybuilding athletes. He's a personal trainer. I said, get a prep coach.
I would imagine you could gather that experience by dealing and coaching athletes, but it would take a lot longer. You have to deal with a lot of athletes to gather the same experience that you could gather by doing a show yourself, or, you know, 2 or 3 shows yourself. You might need to do 20 or 30 athletes, put them through shows to gain the same amount of knowledge and experience you gain from doing it yourself. So certainly there's a lot of benefit to doing it yourself.
Oh, 100%. And it's not like, you know, it's important to note, I'm not saying you have to have been a great bodybuilder to be a great coach. What I am saying is that when that time in that prep requires you to be telling someone that this is what they're going to do and this is how you're expecting to feel, and yet they haven't done it, I'm sort of thinking, well, it's easy for you to tell me, you know, show me the pictures of you being 3.5% shredded, you know, and then I might understand a little bit, I might appreciate a bit more you telling me that I need to do this in order to achieve that. That's where I'm coming from.
And when you look someone in the eye and say, look, I know you're tired, but you just have to do this. I've been there, I know, and they know that you know, then they're far more likely to kind of do it themselves rather than someone who's never been there, never done it, never felt that way themselves.
That's what I'm saying. And there's so many people out there, man, that'll get on their soapbox and tell other people to do this, do this, do this. And you say, oh, hold up a second, you know, I say to people, ask for their credentials. Where have they placed? What have they done? What have they achieved? Show me, get them to show you some pictures of them being on stage, you know, and then we might be able to have the conversation. But, you know, that's where I feel it also falls back on the actual client or the person that's looking for a coach, they need to do their research and not just be duped into, you know, seeing someone that's got a snazzy looking Instagram page or whatever, and it's got that they've got this title or that title. It's like, okay, but they're just really good at marketing because, mate, I mean, I won the teenage nationals when I was 17. That there was no one else on stage. I mean, I could have turned around and start telling people that I'm doing nutrition, but that's what people do these days. And they've got one show and they go out on stage and they win, but they're against, you know, one other person that looks half decent, you know, someone else that looks like complete dog's balls, and the other person is actually a German Shepherd and the other one's a toaster. You know, it's just like, it's just this, it's ridiculous, mate. Yeah, but then they go and brag about the fact that they are open men's, you know, champion, and they then market themselves like that, and then people sort of get sort of sucked into it, and that's where I think that the problem in the bodybuilding sport at this time, that's where the actual problem is within the sport.
Right. Here's one question to kind of go off that topic. Is this the same Darryn Onekawa that used to do his routine on a Swiss ball in the Mr. Athletic category back in the day?
No, it's not. It's
not. Sorry, Mama Ray. You've got the wrong Darryn Onekawa.
Yeah, I don't know. There was a time that I could jump on a Swiss ball, mate, and actually do squats on them, but that's been a while. But no, that's not me, man. Who knows? There's always, maybe I need to reevaluate my career moving forward, and I might need to go into athletic or perhaps classic. Maybe board shorts, and then I could finally cover up these skinny legs that I've got.
Yeah. Right. Before we go, I want to touch on coaching. Darryn, I'm aware that you are getting out there now and going to take on some more athletes. You want to prep a few more guys. So you do you do personal training as well as online coaching, or what's the go?
Well, I do personal training. A lot of the clients that I am picking up are actually in different cities in the country, which is great. So a lot of the coaching that I do is actually online, or, you know, Skype or telephone, email. So that's how I'm doing most of the business that I'm doing. Although, you know, I love doing personal training too, because it's that just hands-on and seeing people sort of, you know, working and helping them achieve, you know, that aspect of their training. So yeah, that's, and people can just get in contact with me just by sending me a DM, a message on Instagram, and I'll always get back to them as soon as I see it, mate. So yeah.
Probably a real important thing that we forgot to touch on is for hands-on personal training. Where are you based? You're based in Rotorua?
Yeah, I'm based in Rotorua, and but, you know, I've had people that have said to me, if I'm able to travel somewhere, you know, they'd be able to sort of, you know, cover my costs and all that sort of stuff, you know, to Whakatane.
Yep.
You know, a mate of mine over there has the best gym in Whakatane. Certainly, in my opinion, his name's Marty Nia. I'll give a shout out to him. And he owns a gym in Whakatane called Sunny Gym. So I've had people ask me to go over there and do that. So that's always an option as well. So
I've actually heard of Sunny Gym. Some of the boys are telling me about it. So it's got a reputation.
It's a great little gym, mate. And you know, so, and I've got some people over there that I'm working with as well. So what will happen is I'll get several people, and they'll all do a training session perhaps on the same day, and then that will encompass the cost of my travel to there, because it's only an hour away, and then I'll sort of knock that out in a day and go and have a feed afterwards, you know, as a group. So that's something that's always a possibility as well. So but man, look, at the end of the day, I just want to make this clear that, you know, anyone that approaches me that wants to know information, I'll give them the same information that I give them to anyone. I don't give anyone special treatment. I don't look after this person. I don't say, oh, this much for this person, because I have to have that line, because I never want to have someone say to me, oh, how much is Darryn charging you? Oh, he's charging me this much. Oh, he charges me that much. I always want to, straight as an arrow, mate, open book. But I always tell people that I always appreciate people that when they want to work with me, because they could choose anyone. And you know, but if people give me a chance to sort of, you know, work with them, I know that provided they follow the plan, I can get them to across the line better than they ever have before.
What sort of athletes or people or mindsets are you really looking for? What really interests you?
Well, mate, the biggest misconception is that I only train male bodybuilders. in actual fact, I've trained more female. I mean, currently I have more ladies on my book than I do men. And I don't know why that is. It's funny, but I suppose it's a stereotype. Most people just look at me and think, oh, he just trains men for bodybuilding. Well, you know, that's not even close to being the fact. I mean, I've got lots of history with clients, with women that have gone to the very height of the sport. And, you know, across the actual range of competitors. So, you know, bikini, figure, wellness hasn't been around for very long. You know, but also, you know, men's bodybuilding right through from board, short, classic, and open. So, you know, I can help anyone that wants to get on stage.
And I know I know that you've worked with some chaps further down Lower North Island that are fucking monsters. That I've always, you know, there's a group of people that were around in the 90s, and one of them was one of the biggest guys I saw on stage, and I know you worked with them, so I know you can get the results with the big guys. So if there are guys that are out there that are aspiring to be open bodybuilders, I would suggest you know, talk to Darryn, because he's actually been there. He's a big man, and a big man actually takes a lot more work, I believe, than someone with less muscle mass. There's just more variables on the day, I reckon. So, you know, if you want to work with someone who's been there and experienced it and got it right, you know, on a number of occasions, Darryn's probably your man for that. So
yeah, appreciate that, man. No, I don't want to limit myself with people out there thinking that I only work with guys that do bodybuilding. And you know, my time will come again. I've just got to, you know, transition myself back into this whole training and coaching aspect of the sport. But I suppose at the end of the day, if I'm going to hype on about, you know, a result speaking for themselves, well, I have to give people in the now proof of the pudding, which will be results. So I've currently got some people that I'm working with, and I'm glad to say there's a couple of big chaps in there that have said, Daz, I want to go and, you know, compete. You know, I want your guidance to do that. So I'm like, sweet. And I'm sort of looking forward to bringing back a little bit of size to our sport, you know, in terms of the open men side of things. But it doesn't matter, you know. Like I said, I've also worked with one of our top pros in the men's physique and taken him all the way from him approaching me in the changing rooms at the gym saying, I want to compete, to actually going up and winning and, you know, going on to, you know, competing as a pro. So
higher honors. He definitely did. Yeah. Okay, I think we're probably going to wrap for tonight, but before we do, I want to open it up to you, Darryn, to give a big shout out to any people you want to shout out to, and obviously your lovely daughter, and anyone else you want to say a big hello to.
Yeah, look, yeah, obviously my daughter is the reason why I set my goal for this year, just to be a better person and the best father I can be. That's the biggest thing that I am. You know, there's a lot of people out there that I value in my life, and they know who they are. And I've just made a conscious effort this year to keep my circle small but keep it quality. And you know, but yeah, I've got some good mates out there that I really value. But they know who they are. I don't want to say anyone, because then I might leave someone out, and then that might hurt someone's feelings. Not that they're that tender, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. But I want to thank you, man, obviously, for having me on. I really appreciate this. And, you know, obviously, Mike as well. It's good to chat. But, you know, hopefully we can, you know, do it again. But, yeah, man, I appreciate this opportunity.
Definitely. And thank you for your time. And to everyone out there, have a safe week, and we will touch base with you later on in the week.
Thanks, man.